Today's story. What I'm holding in my hand, this is interesting. We'll see how far we go with this, but this was put together years ago. When did he do this? Tavshin el Ches. This was put together by, this I see was put together by Bochem 770. But then Elik Friedman did it. And Tzvas, that's Manas's brother. What he did was collect all the stories that the Rebbe said over the years in these pamphlets. They were published pamphlet at a time, and the Rebbe's commentary. Now, the stories that the Rebbe told, for the most part, were not, long, elaborate stories with plots, but like, as you'll see, a pithy story, and what's extraordinary is the Rebbe's explanation. So let's see how we do. This is the first one. The Rebbe relates as follows, quoting the Frierdiker Rebbe, who related as follows, that the Tzemach Tzedek, so there were times when the Tzemach Tzedek would say a maimer very early in the morning, just before the markets opened up. Literally the markets, people came to buy and sell. Market day in Lubavitch. And this would be before dawn. And why did he do that? With the cover, the orchim, the guests that had come, and they would go to the market. They'd come also for purposes of livelihood. So therefore, in their honor, before they went to the Yerid, it's called, Yerid is the Hebrew term, a marketplace, the Tzemach Tzedek would say a maimer. Right? This is very early in the morning, before dawn. So once it happened, Tzemach Tzedek is saying a maimer. And the Rashbatz stands for Reb Shmuel Betzalel Sheftel. He was one of the great Chassidim of the Tzemach Tzedek, and many years later became the private tutor of the Frierdiker Rebbe. He was a great Chassid, whose story is told at length by the Frierdiker Rebbe. He was orphaned at a young age, and his stepfather was a very vehement opposer to Chassidus, and how he discovered Chassidus and became a Chosid, and how he was persecuted for it. It's an incredible story because it's a window into how people became Chassidim in those days of a very strong opposition. In his particular case, maybe one day I'll tell you the story. The Frierdiker Rebbe tells the story. It's published in Hatomim, which is one day we'll tell you about Hatomim. It's a publication that revolutionized Chassidus, published in Warsaw when Frierdiker Rebbe moved to Poland. Anyway, so Rashbatz, back to the story. So Rashbatz, as he's called affectionately by Chassidim, Rashbatz, Shmuel Betzalel. So he's standing there in the room, but the thing is, it's before dawn, it's dark, and he's standing in between the candelabra and the desk, the table of the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek is saying a maimer, and the Rashbatz realizes that his shadow is falling on the table. He's in between, you're following the lantern and the table. So the Rashbatz thought that he should move. He doesn't want to, cast a shadow on the Tzemach Tzedek's shulchan, his holy table, the shulchan atayr, the pure table as we call it. But then he decided he's going to stay. And this is what he thought, that the Rebbe elevates everything on his table, so he'll elevate my shadow as well. So the Rashbat, just that thought popped into his head, that decision, and he's staying. In the middle of the maimer, the Tzemach Tzedek says, in Yiddish, Meile sein kann man oir. Light can be elevated. Cheshech kann nicht meile sein. But darkness cannot be elevated. End of story. So now look at the Rebbe's analysis, which I'll share with you in brief. The story we got, we can elevate light to the Tzemach Tzedek, reading his thoughts, and not darkness. So first of all, the Rebbe says the first lesson is, I should tell you, this was said, Simchas Torah, 1966. The Rebbe told the story. So the first lesson here is that when a Yid is listening to Chassidus, it is not the time to think of anything else. Even if what he's thinking about is a virtuous, holy thought, the Rebbe will elevate my shadow, my dark side, quote unquote, even that's inappropriate. And if you think that you're only thinking, so what difference does it make? So that know that your thoughts are heard. And the stories with the Rebbe too, where in the middle or even in the middle of talking, the Rebbe answers someone's machshav. Happened with Rabbi Yoel and happened with others. So the first lesson is when you're listening to the Maimer, just know before whom you stand, and even virtuous thoughts can be a distraction. That's the first lesson. Now the Rebbe goes into the story. It's so beautiful explanation. So the Rebbe says that Tzemach Tzedek's answer, you can't elevate darkness. What do you mean? Don't we say that the whole point is that we have to subjugate and then transform darkness into light? Hishapcha. It's one of the whole foundational themes of Chassidus, elaborated upon at length in Maimar Mabasi the Gani, right? So how does he say you can't elevate darkness? That's the whole kavanah. So the Rebbe explains, because there's two kinds of darkness. There's a darkness which is simply the absence of light. And then there's a darkness which is real darkness. He doesn't elaborate, but he means absence of light means no mitzvah, but no avera either. No sin, but nothing good. And real darkness is this world. This world is real darkness. Opposing God, denying God, and then there's cheshech at its nethermost level, which is actual transgression. So this is what Tzemach Tzedek is saying. He's saying the neshama didn't come down to the world not to sin. For that, the neshama could remain up there. The neshama came down to the world to engage this world. And sometimes that means you get dirty. And moreover, you're dealing with a dark world. So this is what he says to Rashbatz. The kind of shadow that Rashbatz cast on the table was he was a holy Jew, he was a Chosid. There's no sin. So it was just, what was his shadow? What was his failure? What was his darkness? Lack of engagement. I can't elevate that, said the Tzemach Tzedek. That I can't help you with, because not to sin and to do nothing on his level, whatever that meant, that's not what it's all about. That's not why you came down to the world. What we can elevate is and help with, if a Jew goes down to the world and then engages the world and dealing with it, challenges the world with, which is darkness, which is not just a lack of light, but God creates darkness. There's Yoitzer Oyru Voyre Choshech. So this brings. He creates darkness. How do you create darkness? Because there is a level of darkness, not just the absence of light. It actually is a klippa. Hashem creates klippa. That can be elevated. And that's what you have to engage in. That's what he's saying there. So your kind of ethereal shadow, which is simply the lack of since that's not the avodah, there's nothing to elevate there, in fact. But real choshech, yes. And the Rebbe concludes, I hope we're following this. And that's why, it's just unbelievable, every diak in the every point in the story is some meduyik. That Tzemach Tzedek says this maimah before when these Jews are going out to the marketplace. That's when this whole story happens. And the Rashbatz, he was a great Chosid, was party to this incredible teaching that Tzemach Tzedek. He's telling all these fellas, you're going out to the marketplace. And that's real darkness. A place of swindlers and temptation, the whole business. And you might want to think, well, I have to go there for better. I should just spend all my life in holiness and not sin. No, the whole kavanah of the neshama is to go to the yerid, to go to this place of darkness and transform and elevate it. And you don't go alone. This we help together to elevate. So this little exchange in thought machshava and in words of that Tzemach Tzedek was apropos by divine providence for exactly when he says the Maimer, as the Yidden are about to leave the Maimer and go where? Out into the real world. That's your mission. That's what it's all about. So do so besimcha. And yeah, you get a little bit dirty. There's the ups and downs and maybe sometimes more than that. But it'll all be transformed. That's the mission. The mission is descend into this place of real klipa. It's real. Hashem created it. And engage it, struggle with it, but in the end, it'll be elevated. And Tzemach Tzedek is saying here that this we help, and this we can elevate. I hope the story is clear. Yes? Yep.
Thank you.
So it was a source of profound encouragement and inspiration to the Chassidim who are about to leave the Maimis and were thinking, oh, Gewalt, what am I doing? Hearing this Maimin, have to go to out there in the world. You know, how can I somehow avoid all of this? Or at least he does it half-heartedly. No, so the Tzemach Tzedek in this whole story with the Rashbats. That's the whole kavanah. Elevate that real darkness. That's the beauty. That's the kavanah. That's where it lies, and you don't go alone. Yeah, Elsie, you're saying something. I thought someone said, okay.
No, I said thank you. It was great.